Inspiring journey. Single mom cries on train. Billionaire's surprising text reveals hidden connection. Sarah stared blankly at the familiar flicker of the Chicago skyline, her body swaying gently with the jostle of the train. A long day at the diner had left her legs aching and her spirit dampened. As the evening crowd packed in around them, she fought to maintain her composure for Emily's sake. The girl, with her sketchbook under her arm, was lost in her own world, sketching the vibrant city life around them. Shadows of despair crept closer to Sarah's heart, inching their way into her resolve. The heat of the crowded train intensified as they descended into the dim embrace of the tunnel. Sarah felt it there, the familiar pang of despair going hand in hand with her exhaustion. It was suffocating, terrifying. All around them, passengers were oblivious to her turmoil, heads bowed over phones, they were ensnared in their own daily worries. The weight of her struggles sat heavily on her chest, and Sarah couldn't fight back the tears threatening to spill over. In that moment, nobody's gaze mattered, nothing could pierce the fog of her anguish. She had fought so hard to raise Emily alone, but the world felt stacked against them, a relentless tide pushing her under. "Mom?" Emily's soft voice penetrated the haze, and Sarah glanced down at her daughter, who was quietly scribbling, determined to capture the beauty of the struggle that haunted her mother. The sketches, vibrant and expressive, were Emily's way of expressing her passions, a tribute to the very life they fought to survive. But Sarah feared that the only prize for their efforts would be a heartbroken mother and an unappreciated artist. Before they could reach their next stop, Sarah's phone buzzed, and moved by a thread of hope, she glanced down at a message that made her heart race, a text from Mark, a stranger seated a few rows away. She didn't even know him, but his words revealed a connection as old as her memories. His father once mentored Sarah's own mother. The flicker of recognition felt alien, yet inviting. Could this be a lifeline? A chance for her and Emily to escape the clutches of their reality? Yet an internal storm brewed within her, pride and self-doubt tangled together, refusing her the comfort of acceptance. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The train rattled on, closing in on their destination, but Sarah felt like she was stuck in limbo. Her mind raced. Accepting help from someone in a different world felt like surrendering. Clenching her fists, she fought against the burgeoning possibility of hope, against her fiercely held independence. Emily, sensing her mother's turmoil, looked up from her sketches, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Mom, what if he could really help us?" The simplicity of her question hung in the air, an innocent probe into her mother's tangled emotions. Caught at the precipice of decision, Sarah's breath quickened. In that moment, her phone buzzed again, another text from Mark. The unknown loomed before her, the screen glowing with the promise of change. Would she reach out and grab the lifeline offered, or would she let pride drown her dreams? As the train lurched to a stop, jolting Sarah back from her thoughts, she could no longer ignore the tension between hope and self-preservation swirling within her. The flickering lights above mirrored the turmoil in her heart. Emily's eagerness was palpable, as was Sarah's fear of what stepping forward might entail. "Are you going to read it?" Emily asked, tilting her head curiously, still clutching her sketchbook tightly. Sarah's voice trailed off. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, pinched nervously between the promise of aid and her desire for independence. There was a part of her that yearned for help, but an equal part was terrified of its implications. What if accepting help meant relinquishing control? Taking a deep breath, she glanced back at her phone, where the message from Mark blinked, a neon lighthouse beckoning through the fog of her doubts. She unlocked it, her heart racing as she reread his words. "I know things have been hard for you. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Your mother was an incredible woman. Sarah felt a tidal wave of emotion rise within her. It had been years since she had heard someone mention her mother with such kindness, let alone someone connected to her family. The ache of nostalgia mixed with a foreign sense of hope, and the remnants of sorrow battled against the ember of possibility that flickered to life. "Do you want me to say something?" Emily's innocent inquiry broke the moment, nudging Sarah in a direction she hadn't considered. "Do I want a stranger's help?" Sarah murmured, more to herself than her daughter. The thought sent her mind spiraling. She recalled promises she had made to herself, to be strong, to do it all on her own. Yet now, in front of this new opportunity, those promises felt like chains binding her. Could one message from a stranger free her from an unyielding struggle, or would it merely open the door to even greater pain? "Mom, it's okay to get help," Emily asserted softly, breaking through Sarah's worries. "Just like my art, we need to let people see us. It's brave to create connections." Brave. The word struck Sarah with unexpected force. Was it truly brave to keep bearing the burden alone, or was it merely stubbornness? Her daughter's wisdom, insightful beyond her years, began to thaw the ice around Sarah's resolve. A simple interaction held the potential to reshape their narrative entirely. Closing her eyes, Sarah pictured their lives if she embraced this offer. Help, guidance, softening the hard edges of their existence. The thought stirred something deep within her. "Okay," she whispered, more to herself than Emily. "I'm going to respond." The decision felt like stepping off a precipice, free-falling into unexplored territory. With trembling fingers, she opened the messaging app and began to type. "Thank you, Mark. I'm open to speaking with you." Just as she hit send, a sense of relief mixed with anxiety washed over her. But a new wave of uncertainty crashed in behind it. Had she made the right choice? As they exited the train, Emily skipped ahead, engrossed in her drawings, oblivious to the storm swirling inside her mother. Sarah's chest tightened at the thought of what this moment might mean for them. Then, her phone buzzed again, a response from Mark, quick and inviting. The words formed on the screen, but even before reading them, Sarah felt the stakes elevate. "Let us meet for coffee tomorrow. I can share stories about your mother." As excitement battled anxiety, Sarah's heart quickened. A rendezvous with the past could either bind her more tightly to her history or offer a way forward into a brighter future. The moment had come to face what it could mean, confronting family ghosts and accepting help or retreating into her self-made fortress. And as her pulse raced, with newfound courage mixed with nagging doubt, Sarah wondered which version of herself would emerge from this very pivotal morning ahead. The sidewalk before her stretched into uncertain possibilities, teetering on the brink of transformation. Tomorrow would reveal the extent of her bravery, but for now, navigating her new choice proved the true battle. The sun glimmered through the hazy morning mist as Sarah stood outside the cafe, her heart pounded against her ribcage like a frantic drummer. Memories of her mother danced through her mind, half-formed yet vivid, reminding her of the warmth she had lost. This was not just a meeting, it was an appointment with a ghost. Steeling herself, she opened the door, the chime ringing out like a toll for the uncertain path ahead. Inside, the scent of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods enveloped her, pulling her momentarily from her spiraling thoughts. She scanned the room, searching for Mark, though dampening her expectations. The risks loomed larger than she had anticipated. What if he didn't hold the answers she craved? What if reliving her mother's past burdened her with even greater sorrow? As she settled at a table near the window, her hands trembled not from the cold, but from an internal tempest. She traced the rim of her coffee cup discreetly, wrestling with her desire to know and her trepidation about facing the abyss of emotion lurking beneath the surface. The sight of Emily happily sketching away at the corner table reminded her of her responsibilities, making it all the more important to navigate this with care. Moments later, Mark entered the cafe, his presence calm yet charged. He approached her with a friendly smile, and as he sat down, Sarah felt the familiar tug of apprehension. The world around them faded as he offered his condolences about her mother's passing, each word both a balm and a reminder of everything she had lost. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his voice soft yet steady. "Honestly? I'm trying to learn how to be okay again," she replied, feeling the tremor in her voice. The admission surprised her. It was a vulnerable openness she seldom allowed, a window into the struggle she had hidden for so long. "That's a brave place to start," Mark encouraged, his eyes genuinely compassionate. "Your mother always spoke about resilience. It's something she admired in you." Sarah's breath caught. She felt a sudden surge of anger mingling with the warmth. Resilience? Had she truly been resilient, or merely stubborn? Any progress she had achieved felt staggering in light of the ongoing battle within. Their conversation drifted naturally from memories of her mother into moments that Mark had shared with her, an enlightening orbit around a familiar star. With each revelation, Sarah found pieces of herself awakening. She couldn't remember the last time someone had acknowledged her struggle and celebrated her past, even amidst the grief. It reminded her of the untapped potential buried deep within. "I've always thought that vulnerability can be a source of strength," he remarked, catching her off guard. "It's what leads to connections." The way he said it brought an undeniable curiosity to the surface. Could it really be that simple? Could admitting her flaws and fears empower her rather than weaken her? The thought spiraled in her mind, a revelation amid her conflict. As they continued their discussion, something shifted. Mark shared stories of his own vulnerabilities, revealing a shared humanity she hadn't anticipated. The details began to knit together a richer narrative, one of compassion and support that felt distinct from pity. "Sarah, I want to help you," he said firmly, leaning forward. "But it's essential for you to take this journey on your terms. Whatever that looks like for you." His sincerity opened a door she didn't realize she hadn't wanted to close. With every sentence, the landscape of her life began to morph, to shift from isolation towards connection, yet, a lingering question gnawed at her: was this a mere distraction, or could it be a profound opportunity for growth? As Mark's eyes met hers, Sarah felt the weight of an impending decision loom over her. This was more than just coffee, it was stepping into an unpredictable future. Each heartbeat echoed with the truth that tomorrow would not be the same, regardless of which path her feet would tread, and as they navigated each word, she knew whatever she chose next would test not just her courage, but the very core of who she was. "Sarah, are you ready to dive deeper into your past?" Mark asked, breaking her reverie, locking their fates in a moment that could only promise transformation. The question hung in the air, heavy with possibilities. The tension in the air was palpable, and Sarah's breath caught for a moment as she weighed Mark's question. It felt like standing on the precipice of a cliff, the ground far beneath her swathed in shadow. Would she jump into the unknown, or would she retreat back to the comfort of her familiar pain? I don't know," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The honesty of her uncertainty felt like a sharp knife, slicing through the hope she had tentatively gathered. Mark leaned back, studying her. "It's okay to feel that way. It's a heavy undertaking. Exploring your past can feel like opening a door to a storm." A storm. That word resonated with her. For too long, she had lived within her self-constructed fortress, walled off from emotions she deemed too dangerous to sift through. The familiar churn of fear begged her to stay behind those walls, to avoid the tempest that raged in her memories. But as she looked at Mark, she felt a flicker of resolve. His understanding was a lifeline, pulling her toward the possibilities of connection. "Why did you want to help me?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. It was an awkward question, born from her need to understand his intentions. Was he trying to expiate guilt, or was there more to his willingness to support her? Mark paused, his expression thoughtful. "I've dealt with my own ghosts, Sarah. I believe facing them can change us, mold us into stronger versions of ourselves. Your mother believed in that transformation in you. It's a chance to honor her and yourself." Honor. The word sparked an unexpected warmth within. Sarah had spent countless hours wishing for closure, but there was something raw and empowering about embracing her struggle instead of running from it. Mark's suggestion felt like the gentle urging of the wind guiding her toward the horizon. What if I fail? She challenged, pulling back slightly. What if diving deeper into my past only leaves me more lost? Then we'll find a way through it together. His confidence shifted something inside her, igniting a flicker of belief that perhaps, just perhaps, she was not as alone in this as she feared. Sarah exhaled deeply, allowing herself to feel the weight of the moment. The burden she carried felt heavy, but there was something liberating in the acknowledgement. She began envisioning the potential growth emerging from confronting the labyrinth of her mother's life and their shared history. If I do this, it has to be on my terms, she asserted, the words falling from her lips with newfound conviction. Absolutely. All I can offer is my support, and it'll be a journey we navigate together. The prospect of taking this step sent waves of excitement coursing through her veins, battling the familiar urge to retreat. She considered what it might mean for her future, building memories instead of burying them, honoring both her mother's legacy and her own strength. Perhaps regret was not an inevitable end but rather an incomplete chapter in her life story. As they spoke more, a plan started to form in the back of her mind. They could meet regularly, delve into her memories more deeply, and perhaps piece together her mother's life in a way that felt less like grieving and more like discovery. Yet, beneath this optimism lay a shadow of doubt. Could she really confront her past without getting engulfed? Could she emerge transformed rather than broken? Deep breath. She knew that emotions would swirl, maybe even lash out violently as the storm poured from the depths of her heart. Are you ready to face your fears? Mark's question was a sudden jolt, pulling her back. Ready? I don't know, she said, fidgeting with her cup before meeting his gaze resolutely. But I'm willing to try. A smile broke across Mark's face, one that sparked genuine warmth and admiration. That's all it takes. Just willingness. As they settled into a rhythm of conversation, part of Sarah could feel the churning tide of change rising. She was on the cusp of transformation, but the path ahead was strewn with unknowns. Just remember, Mark said as their meeting drew to a close. Change isn't linear. It's a process, and it's normal to feel overwhelmed at times. Sarah nodded, absorbing his reassurance. Walking out of the cafe, a swirl of questions danced in her mind. This was the beginning, not just of uncovering her mother's past, but of charting her own path forward. With every step, she felt the ground beneath her shift slightly, opening to new possibilities. What would it mean to truly understand her mother's story? As she stepped into the street, the weight of her past felt less daunting beneath the promise of what lay ahead, but just as she gathered her thoughts, her phone vibrated in her pocket, a text from Emily. In that moment, the air thickened once more. What awaited her now? There was a sense of reckoning brewing, one that both excited and frightened her. With a steady breath, she pulled the phone out, her heart racing as she clicked to read Emily's message, unsure of what new challenge or revelation might await her. The screen lit up, displaying a single sentence: "We need to talk. Can you meet me at our usual place?" Dread curled in Sarah's stomach like a dark cloud. Emily's messages typically didn't hold such weight. Most were about casual catch-ups or light-hearted memes, but the tone of this one felt foreboding. She had managed to keep some of her emotional confusion tucked away, but she was acutely aware that this conversation could unravel her resolve or force her to confront more than she was prepared to handle. She shoved the phone back into her pocket, her mind racing. Was this about her upcoming journey into her mother's past? Had she unknowingly dragged Emily into her own turmoil? Guilt gnawed at her. The last thing she wanted was to burden her friend with her emotional load, but just as quickly, Sarah reminded herself of Mark's words: she was on her own path now, and part of this journey meant leaning into her connections. Emily had always been there, and perhaps this confrontation was a chance to solidify their friendship further. She glanced up at the swirling clouds above her, a reflection of her internal storm. Does facing one fear mean avoiding another? She made her way towards their meeting spot, a quaint little park nestled among towering oaks, each tree standing steadfast against the winds of change. As she walked, her thoughts tangled with the potential outcomes of their conversation. What could Emily want to talk about? Might she articulate her own fears about Sarah's journey? Having been companions in their respective struggles, this could very well become a pivotal moment in their relationship. Arriving at the park, Sarah noticed Emily sitting on one of the benches, anxiously tapping her foot. The sight of her friend, usually so composed, only heightened the weight of the looming conversation. "Hey! You made it," Emily said, a nervous smile spreading across her face. There was an unmistakable tension in her voice that only intensified Sarah's unease. "Of course. What is going on?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her tone light, though anxiety clawed at her insides. Emily motioned for her to sit, glancing around as if the trees held secrets she was afraid to voice. "I've been thinking a lot about you," she started cautiously, "and everything you've shared recently." Sarah's heart raced. Were they about to peel back layers of her buried pain and lay them bare? "I'm trying to work through everything," she admitted, hoping to steer the conversation into calmer waters. "I know," Emily replied, her gaze meeting Sarah's with a seriousness that made her pulse quicken. "But I'm worried. Have you really considered how this journey could impact you?" It felt like her friend was gently poking at the crack in her facade, and Sarah winced. "I'm aware it might not be smooth, but I have to understand my mother. I can't let her past haunt me any longer." Emily took a deep breath, a flutter of concern shadowing her features. "And what if it's too much? What if in confronting her past, you begin to lose yourself in it?" Doubt surged within Sarah, and she fought to suppress it. "I'm choosing to do this on my own terms. I want to grow and learn from it. But are you ready?" Emily's question pierced through Sarah's confidence like a well-aimed arrow. "I care about you, and I want to make sure you're not burying yourself deeper." The confusion coiled tighter within her, twisting her thoughts. Was this what Mark warned her about, the overwhelming tide of emotions that came with deep explorations? Yet as the storm roiled inside, a different emotion flickered: determination. "If I'm not ready, then I won't proceed. That's why I'm reaching out," she countered, her voice steadier than she felt. Emily studied her with eyes that seemed to traverse the depths of her struggles. "That's all I needed to hear." Her friend's expression softened, breaking the tension. "I don't want to see you hurt, but I know this is important to you. Just, let us agree to support each other, okay?" A wave of relief washed over Sarah. Maybe part of this journey was not just about confronting her mother's memories, but about allowing her friends to share the load. They could face their own storms together, as they had always done. They left the park feeling lighter and closer, but uncertainty still lurked. As they discussed trivial matters, Sarah couldn't shake the thought: would confronting her mother's story bring her clarity and healing, or unravel deeper fissures she hadn't yet considered? Later that night, as she lay in bed, Mark's words echoed in her mind: "Change isn't linear." What lay ahead was unknown, but the thrill of transformation edged her toward action. Just as sleep began to claim her, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Emily. A new text flashed on the screen from an unknown number: "I know more than you think about your mother. Meet me tomorrow at 3 p.m. The truth needs to be told." Her heart raced and the weight of the message settled in her chest like lead. The storm was moving closer, and she had only begun to understand the depths of her journey. Who was this person, and what truth were they willing to share? There was no backing down. It was time to face the winds head-on. The morning sun seeped through the curtains, casting long shadows across the room. Sarah awoke with a clarity punctuated by the weight of urgency pressing against her chest. The text from the unknown number flared in her mind, an unsolved puzzle demanding immediate attention. She sat up, the determination that had fluttered within her yesterday now crystallizing into a need for action. Suspicion lingered: who could know such intimate details of her mother's life? She had spent years weaving together fragmented memories, purposely isolating herself in her search. As thoughts swirled, she questioned what it meant to not only uncover the truth about her mother but confront the lingering questions about her own identity that rose with each revelation. She slipped into her day, the rhythmic pulse of her morning routine insufficient to mask the anticipation that thrummed beneath her skin. Each task felt muffled, life pressing in around her as she prepared for the meeting. The coffee brewed slowly, but her mind raced through possible scenarios, imagining the face that accompanied the enigmatic message and questioning their intentions. By noon, she could hardly wait any longer. The clock ticked relentlessly, each passing minute heightening her sense of urgency. Should she even go? Did she want to open that door? Yet the growing resolve inside her urged her forward. Moments of empowerment would only come from confronting the unknown. She could visualize conquering layers of doubt, overcoming hesitations that had long stayed dormant. As she left her apartment, the city felt vibrant yet distant, a blur of busy lives disconnected from her purpose. With every step toward the meeting spot, the trees lining the street transformed into silent witnesses of her resolve, standing firm like her intentions. She arrived early, pacing by the fountain where she and Emily often laughed about life's little absurdities. The juxtaposition of those carefree moments against the weight she now carried tightened her throat, but she pressed on. At exactly 3, a figure emerged from the corner of her eye. An older man, well-dressed but casual enough to appear approachable, approached her with a measured gait. His gaze scanned her before settling with an intensity that made her heart skip. "Sarah?" "I'm David," he introduced himself, an edge of warmth in his smile. "Hi," she responded, cautious yet curious. "I received your mother's journal years ago. It holds stories, truths that were never told," David began, and she could feel the heat rise in her cheeks. The air grew thick around them, charged with the weight of unspoken history. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice wavering on the precipice of disbelief. "The things she didn't share, the struggles, the decisions that led to the life she chose for you. I thought she would want someone to know the truth should something happen to her." Her stomach churned with a mix of anxiety and hope. This was the moment she had yearned for, yet it felt like standing at the mouth of a tempest. What lay behind those locked chapters could either resolve her confusion or shatter her understanding of everything she had built. David's eyes softened, as if he could see through her facade. "Your mother may have wanted you to have closure. She cared deeply but was burdened by her past. A past that can still echo through your choices." The statement hit her like a tidal wave, reviving the unresolved pull between her identity and her lineage. For the first time, she envisioned the truth not as a burden, but as a path toward liberation. "Are you ready for this?" David asked, his expression firm yet gentle. The query held the weight of her entire journey thus far. Had she truly prepared for what came next? Doubts swirled before she steadied her resolve. "Let us hear it," she declared, her voice steadier than she had expected. As David began to recount her mother's stories, a fresh thread of understanding began winding through the fabric of Sarah's existence. Each revelation, a stitch binding her past and future together, urged her closer to the woman she aspired to become. But as she listened, a new question arose within her, the awareness that sometimes confronting one's truth can lead to heavier burdens to bear. With the stories unfurling like petals before her, she settled into the chaos of reckoning, yet even within her resolve, something deeper stirred, a creeping fear of how these truths would shape her identity moving forward. Just as David finished a particularly poignant part of her mother's story, Sarah's mind erupted with questions. She had tapped into something unexpected, an awakening she had never predicted. What had she stumbled upon? And before she could express her thoughts, David added, "There's more, Sarah. Some parts of her past are still concealed from you, but the truth can be both liberating and damning." The pulse of anticipation quickened as uncertainty clawed at her. What more lay hidden in her mother's past, and how would it challenge everything she thought she knew? As the shadows of the past deepened around her, a sense of urgency enveloped her. "Are you prepared to face it?" David's question hung between them, a pivotal moment of choice. As her mind raced for answers, the mounting tension made it clear, the upcoming revelations about her mother could lead her down a path either towards reclamation or chaos. Determined, Sarah took a breath and steeled herself. The truth was now within her grasp, but was she truly ready for the final storm? The words hung in the air, thick with the weight of implications. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, each beat echoing the duality of her anticipation and dread. David's gaze was firm, and she sensed unshed tears in his eyes. This was not just about her mother, it was an excavation of buried pain they both shared. Yes, she finally replied, her voice carrying a confidence she didn't fully feel. I need to know. David nodded solemnly, searching her face for signs of hesitance. She could feel the room around them fade into the background, leaving only the two of them and the secrets in her mother's journal. It seemed impossible that the answers she sought lay within pages of ink, yet here was a guide willing to lead her through the darkness. That he pulled an aged leather-bound journal from his bag and presented it to her like a fragile treasure. The black binding shimmered under the faint light, and Sarah's heart fluttered at the weight of legacy now resting in her hands. Be gentle with it. Your mother poured herself into these pages, revealing her battles, her loves, and paths not taken. As she opened the journal, the slight crack of the spine felt like a shot of electricity that ignited endless possibilities. The uneven, handwritten script filled with emotion echoed the very essence of a life yet unexplored. There was something so intimate about reading her mother's thoughts. Words that once were lost to time now beckoned for recognition. David leaned in closer, guiding her through the initial entries, revealing her mother's turbulent youth, filled with fraught decisions and harrowing losses. Each sentence dripped with raw honesty, intertwined with shadowed truths that seemed far too heavy for a single woman to bear alone. I understand why she kept this from you, David murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. But love can also be a source of darkness. Sarah absorbed his words, a growing understanding flooding her mind. Her mother had always been a fortress, strong, unyielding, keeping the world at bay. What had she encountered that was so frightful it warranted such silence? With each story, you peel away the layers of her. David continued, but Sarah interrupted before he could finish. Of her what? Her eyes darted back to the journal, feeling the weight of each word pressing against her soul. Tell me what lies beneath the surface. Forcing herself to focus, she read about her mother's early struggles with relationships, her dreams, and, most shocking, a betrayal that had altered the course of her life. The images painted were hurricane-like love intertwined with loss. As she read deeper, Sarah's mind unraveled. The familiar refrain of her own life echoed between the pages, the decisions she faced mirrored in her mother's past. An unanticipated transformation began to stir within her, a realization she had not been alone in her journey. If she had to wrestle with her past, what makes me immune? She asked, glancing at David, seeking validation for her sudden introspection. How do I know I won't repeat her mistakes? David regarded her thoughtfully, his demeanor shifting to one of empowerment. That's the crux of confronting the truth. You learn from it, reshape it. The chains that bound your mother don't have to bind you. His words ignited a flame of determination within her, illuminating a pathway not only to understanding her mother but also reclaiming her identity. This moment was about breaking generational patterns, about reshaping her destiny. Are you ready to confront her decisions as your own? David pressed, sensing the transition in her spirit. To evolve beyond what you've inherited? Sarah felt the tremors of fear and exhilaration play at the edges of her resolve. Yes, the truths she was uncovering were daunting, yet they also whispered the potential of liberation. I can't stay stuck in the shadows of her past, she conceded, grounding herself with the new insights unfurling before her. I want to create my path, even if it comes with the weight of her memories. Just as she seemed to step forward, a tremor rippled through her mind. What would her discoveries ultimately reveal about herself? Was she prepared for the emotional repercussions that could arise? As if sensing her turmoil, David leaned slightly closer, his expression earnest. Acceptance is a powerful tool. Embrace the lessons and you will trust in your own choices. The finality in his voice left an indelible mark on her psyche. She was not just uncovering her mother's secrets, she was unlocking her potential. As she turned another page, she realized that the real storm was not merely the truths she was uncovering, but rather the unveiling of her own fears and insecurities. Suddenly aware of how far she had come, Sarah took a deep breath, inhaling the potential for transformational growth. Yet lingering doubts haunted her thoughts. What if these truths changed everything about the way she saw herself? Would the revelations be liberating or haunting? Still filled with a burgeoning resolve, Sarah braced herself for what was next, knowing she stood on the brink of discovery that could redefine her very existence. "Let us see where this takes us," she prompted David, the tremor of uncertainty still threading through her voice, but masked by an emerging strength, and as she said those words, a chilling realization dawned upon her. Before the journey could begin, she had to confront the reality that some truths are not only liberating but may also shatter the person you once thought you were. With the journal open before her, she wondered if the next page would hold the revelation that would turn her world upside down. The journal felt warm in her hands, as if alive with the energy of her mother's spirit. Sarah glanced at David, who met her gaze with an encouraging nod. This was it. The fork in the road that could lead her back to herself or to a chasm of despair. Each letter she read brought up memories she had long buried: her first heartbreak, her struggles to assert independence, her failures that loomed larger than her successes. She was not immune. The realization crashed over her like a wave, forcing her to grapple with the weight of her own decisions. Each entry in the journal read like a mirror reflecting her own challenges. Her mother's battles mirrored her own fears, layered with the weight of expectations both external and internal. The patterns began to form in her mind like stark outlines on a canvas ready to be filled with color. Her mother had made choices, some born of love, others marred by pain, and Sarah found herself at a loss, caught between admiration and judgment. "What if I make mistakes too?" she muttered, the vulnerability creeping into her voice. The dread of failure washed over her again, a familiar companion she had tried to silence. She felt the fear choke her ambitions, yet with it came a flicker of resilience. This was no mere inheritance of struggle, this was an invitation to craft her path. "Those are valid concerns," David said, drawing her from her spiraling thoughts. "Mistakes are simply stepping stones. Every decision leads to growth, even the painful ones. Have you ever considered them as opportunities for transformation?" The term resonated deeply within her. Transformation. She had acted as though life was merely a series of right or wrong choices, but what if her perspective shifted? What if she embraced mistakes as vital components of her journey? For the first time, the concept began to settle comfortably into her mind, chipping away at the self-imposed shackles of perfectionism. As she continued reading, a sense of urgency overtook her. Each fragmented story of love lost, hope reignited, dreams abandoned, and paths taken emerged vividly, forging a connection between mother and daughter. The journal was not just about her mother's past, it was an exploration of her own untapped potential. She was forging a bond with the woman whose strengths had also shaped her vulnerabilities. She was not just unlocking the secrets of her mother's choices, she was revealing her own. What choices had she refrained from making, stifled by fear or the weight of expectations around her? What liberties had she overlooked simply because they seemed too audacious? As Sarah connected the dots, her heart raced with newfound understanding. It was time to confront her own past decisions. Would she empower herself to rewrite her narrative? The questions felt heavy, yet clarity emerged. This was an opportunity for reinvention, to craft a new story woven with strands of her mother's wisdom and her own resolve. She closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to breathe. This was bigger than simply reading a journal. It was a reclamation of her narrative, a chance to give her life shape and purpose. The uncertainty that had once overwhelmed her morphed into a driving force. "It's not about avoiding mistakes," she said, more to herself than David. "It's about understanding what I can learn from them." "Exactly," David said, a grin breaking across his face. Mistakes are teachers, they shape our character. Remember, what you've inherited are not just burdens to bear but tools for growth. As she committed to embracing this new perspective, a fresh wave of resolve surged through her. She felt her potential awaken, coupled with an unwavering belief that she could navigate her journey with purpose. The journal was not only a relic of the past, it was her roadmap, lighting the way into the future. David's words had transformed the air between them, thick with possibility. "I need to think about how I can consciously apply these lessons to my life," she replied, a renewed sense of determination churning within her. "Would you be willing to take action?" he prompted, his eyes bright with encouragement. Sarah nodded vigorously, her path clearer than it had ever been. She didn't just want to read her mother's story, she wanted to write her own. Taking the pen in hand, she added her own thoughts beside her mother's, setting intentions for what she might choose moving forward. The next page awaited, ripe with the promise of revelation, urging her further into this labyrinth of truth and growth. But even as she prepared to delve deeper, a sense of trepidation emerged. Dare she confront the consequences of unearthing long-buried secrets, the possibility of unearthed family tensions or confrontations with those she had thought supportive? Balancing on the precipice of transformation, Sarah felt the unmistakable gravity of her journey pressing against her chest. "Let us see what these revelations can lead us to," she whispered under her breath, as doubts whispered against her tenacity. But somewhere deep inside, she knew the time had come to face the echoes of her mother's past. A winding road lay ahead that promised to both enlighten and challenge her sense of self. As she braced herself for the next wave of discovery, she heard the faint call of destiny, nearing a chance to break free from her mother's shadows, but at what cost? The scent of aged paper and ink wrapped around Sarah like a comforting blanket as she turned to the next page of her mother's journal. The previous revelations were still echoing in her mind, but there was a deeper resonance with each unfolding word. This next entry was marked with a slight smear of coffee, a reminder of the human touch that often infused the written word with life. It was an ordinary mistake, yet it served as a vessel for extraordinary insights. Her mother had chronicled a time of intense upheaval, a critical juncture that dismantled a comfortable existence, forcing her to reevaluate every decision she had ever made. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. She knew she was on the verge of a breakthrough. Each word she absorbed illuminated her own journey, inviting her to confront the discomforts lying dormant within her: trust issues, fear of vulnerability, the relentless chase of perfection that clouded her perception of success. "Mom faced this too," she murmured, reflecting on the skepticism that had cloaked her in the past. All her life, Sarah had idolized her mother, projecting an unmoving image of strength. But here, on these pages, there were cracks, moments where her mother was raw and real. It was a vulnerability that had terrified Sarah just as much as her fear of failure did. "Are you going to allow yourself to be as open?" David's question throbbed in her mind, a challenge to peel back the layers she had meticulously constructed. The prospect of transparency stirred a chaotic mix of anticipation and dread within her. What if she stripped bare her fears, her desires, her failures? What would she find beneath it all? As Sarah continued to read, the entry morphed into a dialogue not only with her mother but also with herself. "You cannot hide from pain. Pain is merely the catalyst for growth," her mother wrote with a fierce conviction that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. It was true, every reminder of her past choices carried belief systems that hindered her from moving forward. She could no longer excuse avoidance. Clarity enveloped her, unearthing the desire to confront her mother's past while reclaiming her own agency. It wasn't merely about acknowledging weaknesses. It was about understanding that her mother's journey, marked by twists of fate and personal realizations, could guide her own decisions. That legacy didn't have to be a heavy burden, it could be an empowering compass. The question she faced, however, was whether she had the courage to navigate the unknown, to step into uncertainty and embrace whatever arose from it. "Have you considered the ramifications of these truths?" Her inner voice pressed persistently, unnerving the spaces she had protected. She could almost visualize the repercussions: tenuous conversations with family members, hidden grievances surfacing, posing risks that could upend her carefully curated life. But there was a raw thirst for truth pulling her deeper. Who was she if not authentic, unfiltered? Mom wasn't he perfect, she whispered, finally admitting the very thing she feared to accept. Imperfection was universal, it was a conduit to connection. It made mistakes relatable, and mistakes shaped her journey toward uncovering courage and identity. The stark contrast between perfection and vulnerability gripped her, illuminating the path she could choose. I need to do this. The conviction tinged with urgency coursed through her. She couldn't merely absorb the lessons from her mother, she needed to embody them, challenge herself to be adept in navigating her fears. Small decisions had to be made, steps taken toward bridging the emotional distance that had held her back. She could reach out to her estranged sister, confront unspoken grievances with her father, or even redefine her current relationship with David, sharing the blooming realization of her journey. Sarah's fingers trembled above the blank page as she considered her next move. The inked words waiting to be born were a testament to her evolution. But deep within, apprehension lingered, gnawing at her resolve. The moment of reckoning loomed, and she could not ignore the intensity of her heart racing at the thought of potential confrontations. Will the truth mend bonds or sever them? She pondered, each complication igniting a fire of doubt tempered only by her burgeoning resolve. And so, she prepared to wield her pen like a sword, ready to carve out her own truth amidst the thicket of uncertainty. The choice felt heavy, yet tantalizing, a transformation awaiting her engagement. As her pen met the page, she sensed the distance shrinking, the past merging fatally with the present. It was time to confront this unraveling tapestry, time to face the tumultuous echoes of history that would ultimately demand to be woven into her future. What awaited her beyond this milestone? Would her story reclaim agency, or would the past encroach, redefining who she had become? Would she gain the courage to confront her family, or would fear chain her once again? The sun dipped low in the sky as Sarah faced herself in the reflection of her mother's journey. Each entry in the journal had pivoted her toward the realization that strength was not the absence of vulnerability, it was the courage to embrace it. After days of wrestling with the weight of familial expectations, fears, and buried painful truths, she understood it was time to not only inherit her mother's legacy but also to redefine it for herself. As she sat at her desk, surrounded by the swirling remnants of her chaotic past, Sarah felt a burgeoning power inside her. She picked up her pen, the tool of her agency, trembling slightly before she began to write her own story beside her mother's evolved tale. I am not just my mother's daughter, she inscribed boldly. I am a woman unafraid to carve my identity from the narratives of pain and triumph that shaped us both. Each word became a commitment, not just to her past but to her future. The dual legacy, a blend of courage and exposure, allowed her to revise the course of her own life. As she documented her thoughts, she felt the shackles of expectation unfasten, releasing her into possibilities she had once deemed as no-go zones. It was enlightening. It was terrifying. But most importantly, it was liberating. Hours later, with the last lines penned, she closed the journal and took a deep breath. In that moment of finality, she glanced at the wall, a collage of her daughter's artwork, and felt an urgent swell of responsibility and love. Not just for Emily but for herself. She was no longer just a vessel for her mother's story, she was beginning to stand as an emblem of transformation, ripe with potential and unspoiled opportunities. That evening, Sarah invited Emily to join her for tea. Their ritual was no longer merely about casual chats, this was about sharing the weight of burdens and celebrating the wounds that made them resilient. As they sat together in the soft glow of the evening light, Sarah felt a sense of readiness coursing through her veins. Emily, there is something I want to share with you. I've been working on piecing together my thoughts about Grandma. The gleam in Emily's eyes danced with curiosity and anticipation. Mom, tell me everything. With each revelation, their conversation blossomed into a dialogue of understanding. Sustainable growth emerged not just from accepting the flaws in each other but from strengthening the connection that grew from these encounters. Sarah realized in those moments that she was teaching Emily a crucial lesson, not just about her past but about the beauty of vulnerability intertwined with resilience. Together, they created a space of safety, a foundation to foster each other's dreams. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah converted her insights and revelations into action. She reached out to her estranged sister, a move that felt daunting but ultimately became a pivotal moment in her journey. When they spoke, honesty colored their words, uncovering lost time, pain, and regrets. It dawned on Sarah how the past could be a tidal wave of emotional chaos or an opportunity to reclaim family ties, shaped by vulnerability and courage. "I want to know you," she said, her voice unwavering yet gentle. Her sister's response unraveled years of hurt, each layer peeled back, allowing them to rebuild their fragmented relationship. From that moment, Sarah proved that regenerative bonds often required reckoning with the memories that had long haunted them. Sarah's journey reached an unexpected zenith. She was now curating community workshops for women, opening conversations about inherited expectations, imperfection, and courage, much like her own journey. She found empowerment in every woman who stepped into the room, each story reflecting a thread in the tapestry of resilience. Those moments solidified not only her growth but solidified her new role as a leader, a guide for others journeying through their own storms. Through her endeavors, Sarah demonstrated to Emily the beauty of transformation, how embracing change not only reshapes oneself but empowers others. As she watched her daughter sketch vibrant illustrations depicting tales of courage at those very workshops, Sarah felt something shift deep within her. It was the affirmation of connection, of merging past lessons into a platform for growth, a testament that her mother's legacy was encoded in the new story they were writing together. "In my losses, I've found wins," she often narrated, which had become the rallying cry of her new chapter. A profound realization settled upon her: healing did not erase scars but instead illuminated pathways to authenticity. As she gazed into the setting sun that evening, warmth wrapped around her. Sarah was no longer clouded by her mother's expectations. She was defining her own, bringing forth a woman of strength, adaptation, and empathy. In concluding this journey, she had not just conquered her conflicts, she had embraced the very fabric of her being, composed of both light and shadow, assuring her that she was not simply a product of her family's history but a force shaping her own future. Each step she took was victorious, every fleeting doubt faced resolutely. In that beautiful chaos of human experience, Sarah had emerged as a beacon, a testament not merely to the legacy left by her mother but to the uncontained power of transforming pain into purpose. The final moment solidified a new mantra imprinted in her heart, a pledge that demanded action within her life and beyond. Let every story be a bridge to another's freedom. And now she stood ready, the world awaited their stories. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.